we're going to be doing the Wesley Chapel update. If you do want to speak to that matter, we have a special sign-in sheet, so it is here. That is going to be something separate from our public comment at the beginning of the meeting. The public comment section at the beginning is for those items that are not on the agenda. So you will be given an opportunity to talk about the Wesley Chapel study. If you want to do that, here's the list. So I will leave it here. If somebody wants to, anybody else wants to add their name, they're welcome to do so.
Take that down to the podium.
All right, and now we do have a quorum, right?
What's your number?
Whatever. Huh? Doesn't matter. Don't matter? I don't think
And I literally live like a couple of blocks.
How are you?
I'm good.
Oh, no, it's no. 0124. I'll give you somebody else's number. 813-0124.
What's the first one?
713.
8137.
0124. So there is parking all over. Correct. There is parking all over. And the bank, the Centennial Bank, is a really good place. But you see which is right down it. But my house is equally as far, so if you can't find a spot, just text me. A couple blocks away, and you can just park right in the side driveway.
Thank you.
Yep, no problem. All right, are we good to? You guys mind if we start? Are we good? Okay. We're ready. Well, we were waiting on you, sir. So there you go. Are we good? I know you are. So. Alrighty, I believe we have a quorum, and we're going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. Oh, excuse me, throwing stuff at me. Okay, it is 11:06 a.m. on Thursday, December 13th, and welcome all to our MPO meeting here in Dade City. We are going to begin by the invocation and pledge of allegiance. Madam Clerk, please stand. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. And Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilman Smith.
Here.
Councilman Starkey.
Here.
Mayor Massett. Commissioner Moore.
Here.
Commissioner Starkey.
Here.
Commissioner Oakley.
Here.
Commissioner Wells. Commissioner Mariano. Chairman Hernandez.
Here. Does it matter? Thank you and good morning. I'd ask you, please, if you do have a cell phone or other electronic devices, that you silence them during the course of our meeting so we can have an orderly and quiet meeting. Thank you. This is the portion of the meeting for public input. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to the board for any item that is not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move to the approval of the meeting minutes. We do have 3 sets of minutes from August 23rd, September 13th, and November 5.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We have 2 MPO Advisory Committee reports. The first one is from the Citizens Advisory Committee. Oh, okay, there she is. I'm sorry. I didn't see you, Marilyn. I'm sorry. Good morning. Your name and address for the record.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Marilyn Deschamps, and a member, longtime member of the CAC. Our chair, Kelly Miller, couldn't be here today and asked me to be here in her stead. Good morning, Chairwoman Hernandez and the MPO board members. The CAC met on December 5 at the American Consulting Engineers of Florida's Cypress Conference Room in Wesley Chapel. We began the meeting with no public comment because there was no one there to comment. We had a slight correction before approving the minutes and then moved on to the report from your last meeting on November 8. John Villeneuve shared the good news of your approving the Vision Zero for Pasco County. We, as a group, look forward to participating in finding the best practices to ensure the safety of our residents and visitors. John further reported your adoption of the modeling task involving reduced right-of-way issues. The committee moved on to the action items and quickly approved the 2019 meeting calendar, AECom's 2 requests for time extension without increased cost, and the invoice for the MPO's share of the CCC interlocal agreement. Agenda presentations included FDOT's Alex Henry's PowerPoint on the 5-year work program and staff Elliot Teffy's Wesley Chapel Connection Study. PCPT reported good news about increased service on US 19 and had a great discussion with CAC members about their suggestions to curb for future problems. Also, we had requested a list of signalized lights with LED that are on US 19, and we understand that that has not only been addressed, but we also, all of us received a list. Thank you to the MPO office.
Thank you, Marilyn. Are there questions for?
I still have a little bit more.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. I was thinking the MPO office for the
Oh,
list. Yeah.
I was making sure my phone was silenced. Okay, go ahead.
Congestion management, which is always given to us by Manny, made reference to task force issues that were handled quickly through FDOT and the MPO office, and we thank them for processing these findings. In conclusion, during the roundtable, the CAC discussed moving Pasco into the new world of technology. Kelly Miller, our chair, had shared with us that she had learned about what she'd learned at the Florida Automated Vehicle Summit a couple of weeks ago. Several members also voiced their opinion about being somewhat tired about seeing repaving and repairing road projects and fewer creative approaches or vision for better transportation in Pasco County. As we were reminded before we left, please make sure you have representatives for your cities and your areas and alternates. We want a full board, we want good participation, and CAC representation is really truly important at these meetings. There will be a couple of members that will have to be reappointed next year due to lack of attendance. And if you need to know if you have openings, I'm sure the MPO office will give you that information. So, on behalf of the CAC, we wish you all a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and safe travels. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and again, I apologize for
Oh, no,
doing
that's
that. Is
fine.
there any questions or comments from Ms. Marilyn about the CAC?
Just thanks for all you do.
Thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Ms. Marilyn. Second one is the BPAC. Do we have a representative here?
Yes, Dr. Stovall sent his regrets he could not attend, but the one comment that the BPAC wanted to share with you was that they entirely support the Safe Routes to School application, which you'll be getting in our next agenda item. That's what they wanted to relay to you.
Great, thank you, sir.
Can I comment?
Yes, ma'am.
So I attended that meeting, and at the meeting, there was a discussion about the new trails person that's coming from the Parks Department, and the members of the BPAC were told that that person was not forthcoming, but I just want everyone to know January 1st or shortly thereafter, we will be hiring, hopefully, someone who will handle the parks and recreation side of trail use.
Okay.
So we'll have the MPO side for trail users, plus that complementary parks side, so.
Perfect, thank you. Thank you for that information. With that, we move on to the action items. The first item is the 2019 meeting calendar. John.
Yes, so every year we present to you the calendar, and so essentially we try to be consistent with the second Wednesday or the second Thursday of the month. But we do have a couple of exceptions we'd like to share with you and ask for your approval. In January, as you know, we've been working diligently with the Hillsborough and the Pinellas MPO on a possible collaborative effort. They're calling it best practices study. So the consultant is coming down that week of the 17th to present to both Hillsborough and to Pinellas. So we're asking that we can change our meeting from the 10th to the 17th so that they can provide those recommendations to you.
What location?
The location would tentatively be Newport Richey just because it's based on our starting, but again, this cycle can start in Dade City and rotate, it can start in Newport Richey and rotate. But we have locked in all these dates with boardrooms and that sort of thing.
Madam Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
I want to object to December 11th in Dade City because we'll run into the same problem we had today. So I'd like to suggest that we rotate November 14th in Dade City and December 11th in Newport Richey. Because we have a big Kona breakfast that is always on this date, and it's a problem.
So the only issue with that is it's actually going to be a day before the Thursday. It's going to be a Wednesday in December because as per the FHWA, we have to approve our long-range transportation plan. So we're actually scheduling it on a Wednesday instead of a Thursday. And it will also avoid that conflict.
Okay, and I
as well.
see that little 7
Yeah.
now.
That'll
Didn't know
work.
what that meant, but
That'll
that's
work.
perfect, that's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so then January 17th, I think there's an issue
So,
here.
Madam Chair, thank you.
Okay.
So you want to move from Wednesday the 16th to the 7th, Thursday the 17th?
It was originally going to be January 10th, Thursday to
You want to
January
move it to
17th.
Thursday the 17th?
Yes, a week later.
Well, I can't be there, but is there anything
Where's that one?
specifically on the?
Which one you talking about?
January this month? January, this
How about
January?
January of 2019 is what you're asking?
Correct.
Okay. And you want to switch it from the 10th to the 17th?
Correct.
And that's in Newport Richey? So, correct?
As of right now, yes.
Okay, so there's nothing on
I
that
can do that
agenda
as well.
that's, will be brought up that has to do with the east side of the county? Okay. Is there anything?
We're
'Cause I
not,
can't be there. so.
yes, I understand. There are a variety of items that will come forward that month, but the main thing is that presentation that we want to make sure you all are able to have, so.
Got a meeting here that afternoon.
Yeah, I'm gonna be in it all day. I'm a panelist on a forum all day long, so I can't be there.
Okay.
I'm back here in the afternoon that same day.
But if it's the morning, so she
It
should
would
be
be the
okay.
morning, it would just be a week later than your normal
So
Thursday.
I'm
Chair
fine.
can't be there,
Newport
either. She
Richey.
said the
Yeah.
same thing I'm at.
Okay.
What's going on that day that,
Okay, Madam Chair. So we
Yes,
have, we have a commercial real estate fall forum that we're panelists on. That day. And it's pretty much an all-day event, it
It's
looks
in
like.
the morning, unless they change
I
it,
have
I don't,
blocked
yeah, I
out
don't know.
pretty good,
So if it remains the 10th, it remains the 10th. We will reach out and see if they could come, but worst case scenario, maybe we can.
oh, I
work
can't be
around
here on the
getting-
10th either.
Yeah, but that is what our regular
That's-
schedule
yeah,
would be. So we just have
I'm
to
in
work with the
Gainesville.
consultant. You're going to get a physical report, but in the event you wanted a discussion, that
Let me
would
see
be
here.
the appropriate
Mine
forum.
may start at 1.
So we have at least one person, I can probably change, so we have at least one, so we need
Yeah,
5 to have the
just
quorum.
don't
So
put anything
let's just
in
leave
the
it like,
rest.
we'll leave it on the 17th, because it sounds like we have even more issues if we move
I
to
can
the
stay
10th.
till 11.
So
and I
if
have
we
to head
start at the
down.
regular time, 10 o'clock, and that's in Newport Richey, okay?
And 17th, you'd be okay with? Or you want to remain
Do
the
you have
10th?
any issues at
Yeah,
this
there's-
time?
I mean, we're happy with
There's
whatever.
nothing on there that affects what we're
Was
discussing today.
was it already scheduled for the 10th?
Correct.
Okay, I'm good.
There
So
won't
we're
be
gonna
any
move it
West.
from the 10th to the 17th?
Correct, that's our request.
Okay.
It's better
This
for me.
one time, just because of the uniqueness of this.
Right, the
study.
person's gone. All right, let's
Okay.
leave it on the 17th in Newport Richey.
Okay, and then the other one was March. We're leaving tentative because a lot of you may be in Tallahassee.
Tallahassee,
So we'll
right.
play that by ear, but we've gone ahead and canceled the July meeting, I think, as per your request, just so that you're happy that you have a little time off throughout the year. So with that, those are the only comments we have. We just ask for your approval of the calendar.
Move for approval.
We have a motion.
With the noted changes.
We have a motion. Did I hear a
Second.
second? Second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yeah, we're-
Motion carries. Okay, thank you, John, for that. And as we get closer to that, remind us as those changing dates. The second item is item B with AECom, time extension.
Yes, so this is a request for time extension. AECom is doing a lot of our public outreach. As you know, when you do a long-range master plan update, there's a lot of outreach, public engagement. So when they originally scoped it, they thought they would have a lot of the work done beforehand, but as it works out, they're able to extend the time, not the budget, so that they can work in parallel with us throughout the 2019 calendar year so that we can complete the study. So in this case, specifically, it's asking for request to input till the end of April for this particular task.
Thank you, John. Questions for John on this item? It's a pleasure of the board. Asking to review and approve the contract. We have a motion. Second. We have a second by Councilman Lance. Further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item C, another time extension.
Yes, so this is a similar project, but it's for the long-range master plan. They're working with MetroQuest on a lot of survey and that survey data, which we'll come to next month with. They did a regional long-range master plan survey of citizens, so we'll share that information with you. But this request is to get us to the end of the year, again, to parallel our long-range master plan. So it's just time, no funding.
Move for approval.
We have a motion, we have a second. Further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item D, an invoice for CCC interlocal agreement. John?
Yes, so we came to you a few months ago to renew our 5-year requirement with the interlocal agreement with essentially Tabarda. So our requirement every year is to chip in $5,000. They use that money for a variety of studies. One of them is the MPO collaborative study. And so invariably, this is our contribution each year to keep those efforts going. We also serve on the CCC Chairs Committee. So there's a lot of administrative stuff that they provide for us, so we're just asking for approval to pay the invoice for our annual fee.
Move for approval.
We have a motion, second. Further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The last one, you handling that as well, John?
I'm going to
Yes.
I'm going to introduce Miss Debbie Bolduc. She's going to walk you through their request for support for the Safe Routes to Schools program.
That's one of my favorite programs, so it's a good program.
It's been a while since I've been here. Good morning, Deborah Bolduc, Engineering Services. So we're here this morning to present to you the 3 applications that we've been working with the school board on for Safe Routes to Schools funding. And this is a lengthy presentation, so I'm going to jump to the highlights and save you some time this morning. So in our MPOTA priority list of projects, we have identified a few of the sidewalk projects that could be potential Safe Routes to Schools funded projects by DOT. And those projects need to meet specific criteria. We have to have all the right-of-way secured for those projects, and the school board needs to be on board and support them as well, and they have to benefit schools and help the students. So we have identified 3 projects. The first one is on Fort King Road, the second is on Zimmerman Road, and the third is on Ballantrae. These will include missing sidewalk gaps. There'll be 6-foot sidewalks added. In addition, there'll be signing and pavement markings, there'll be PED signals, and some of these will include a gravity wall. So the improvements will be more extensive than just putting down a sidewalk. The sidewalk on Fort King Road is actually in 2 segments. It includes the east side of Fort King from Hester to Coleman, and the west side from Morningside Drive to the entrance to the high school. The second project is on Zimmerman, and that is a sidewalk that would be built along the east side of Zimmerman from Ranch to State Road 52. And the last one is on Ballantrae, and it will extend from Stratton Place to Tower Road on the west side of the road. So the cumulative total estimated cost for all 3 of these is about $1.6 million. So I'm going to hit pause, and if you want me to advance and show you the graphics, we'll do that. Or we can answer questions, or we can do both. And at the conclusion, I would ask that you make a recommendation to support these 3 applications, because the more public outreach and public engagement we do, the higher the scoring by DOT, and it puts us in a better position for funding.
Questions for
What'd you like
Debbie?
me to do?
Commissioner Stark.
We talked about these at the BPAC meeting, and I think it's been corrected, but I want to be sure that when they were looking at the sidewalks, especially the one around Ballantrae, we made sure to not put the sidewalks where there might have been road widening occurring. And I'm trying to remember who was at the BPAC meeting when we discussed
By the developer.
this.
I think Jack was there. And it will, so if there's a developer obligation to make this improvement, then it will not include what they need to do, unless there's a length of time between when the developer will be there and when we get the funding. So this funding is in for future years, so they're talking about 2023. So
These won't be done till 2020.
well, I'm saying that's when they say the funding's available. However, if we have applications in and somebody doesn't do their projects, it places us in a good position to advance it for us. So our goal is to get the applications in. If they commit to funding in a future year, that's fine, but they also open up the chance for us to say, yeah, we can get to it, we can do it sooner. So,
In looking at these maps that you have here, and I didn't bring my BPAC one, and Manny, you were there at the meeting, I think? No? Who was, John, were you there?
Jack was there.
Well, who was-
Which, let me advance, let me go to Ballantrae.
I know that when when we were looking at the original ones, it looked like it was in land that might have been preserved for the right-of-way preservation ordinance, and then we'd have to rip up that sidewalk. So I just want to be sure that issue was corrected after
So
the
this is
BPAC meeting.
bound. Do you remember which slide? This is meant more. Let me go up here. Let me go back. Whoops.
Okay,
Let me go back.
were these locations looked at compared to the right-of-way preservation ordinance and future plans for widening?
They're on the edge of the right-of-way, so it would not be so the road widening would occur outside of the sidewalk.
Okay.
Yeah, well, so I think it was fixed, because when we were at the meeting, it was clearly in what looked like land that was preserved for right-of-way improvements, and then that.
For
would just be-
widening, no, we would not put it in an area where the road's going to be widened.
And I'm really surprised in Ballantrae that there wasn't a developer requirement to put the sidewalk in. So,
I
was
thought
that
that question was
researched?
asked. Jack? Oh, Jack. Jack was there.
Hi there, Jack King with Traffic Operations. Yes, we did go back and check with our planning folks to see whether or not there was a requirement. We did not find one. So given that, we would still wind up having to fund this one.
Well, that's interesting, because typically we do require sidewalks, don't we, Deborah?
Yes. Well, typically, yes. I don't know the history on this, and I wasn't at the BPAC meeting.
Okay. So just as long as we're not putting in a sidewalk and then tearing it up.
No, we won't. we won't
I do
that.
have another question, and I don't recall the funding cycle of DOT. But in years past, before any of these guys were on the commission, we learned of sprinkle money from DOT when it's left over. They have some leftover money, and, Hernando got 7 sidewalks and Pinellas 3 or whatever, and we didn't get any because we didn't have any shovel-ready projects. So has there been any leftover money from DOT in this last year, and did they allocate any projects like that in this funding cycle from leftover money, and did we get any?
Okay, so we have, there are 3 sidewalks that we're doing. One was Wiggins sidewalk. That's from Trouble Creek to 54. That was Safe Routes to School funding. And that construction is funding next year.
Was it in that leftover pool that they've done historically that we just don't always see?
I'm not aware of the Safe Routes to Schools. Now remember, Safe Routes to Schools and the TA funding was in 2 separate buckets at one time. Then they put it all into one bucket. So now they've been split out again. So
Well, I guess
I'm not
we can
aware
ask
of any.
We can ask our DOT folks if they can give us the list of those projects that were added at the end of the year.
So that would have been a couple of years ago. I don't think
They
that
don't
was
do
recent.
that anymore?
Well, I think we talked about this before, and I think there was a list brought maybe a year ago.
Yeah.
But I'm not aware that there has been any unspent funding within the past year that's been given out.
DOT will present an agenda item on the executive work program, what sidewalk projects they have funded, and maybe at that time, Stephen can come explain.
Yeah, it's
So we
a
have
little-
3. We've got Wiggins, we've got 20th Street, and then there's a segment along Sweet Bay. So those were, one of them was Safe Routes to School, and the other 2 were Safe Routes to Schools, and one was TA funded.
But were those in our regular list, or were those added because there was some extra money and we got to be in that pool that in the past we weren't in?
Well, I think Wiggins had been sitting out there for a while. I think Wiggins and 20th Street were sitting out there for a while.
All right, and lastly, I see the sidewalk to Trinity elementary school, Trinity West, maybe Trinity Oaks Elementary School is not on here. And that, it goes from Chelsea Place to Trinity Oaks Elementary. We have it from Trinity Oaks East, and we've had citizens request to do it from Trinity Oaks West. The people are walking on the side of the road.
Mitchell Boulevard, you're talking along
Yes,
Mitchell Boulevard?
on Mitchell Boulevard.
So,
just how's that ranking looking?
that, I don't know where it's ranked on the MPO list, but we may have to seek TA funding for that one because the school board didn't see that it was going to be a huge benefit to the students at that school. So we've kept, it's still on the list, but we have to look at a different funding source.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Steve from DOT, did you want to address, while those are fresh in our mind, you just want to wait, or somebody from FDOT, do you want to wait? Okay, I just see you nodding the head in approval while we were talking about that, so. Okay, so what you, further questions on these 3 projects that they want to submit this year for safe routes? So at this point, you would like to get.
I would like to get a recommendation for support for the submittal of these 3 applications to DOT for Safe Routes to School funding. Because it just means that our scoring will be.
Yeah, that adds to our scoring, which makes it go up. I know for the Fort King Road project, the one here in East Pasco, that's something we've been talking about for years.
Yes, you have.
There's a lot of traffic. I mean, we're excited about the potential for that being completed because there are a lot of children and it is very unsafe
yes.
there, especially as people are rounding out. So I know that's something
Yeah, we
that's
saw that, so.
very important to us. So what we're asking for?
So I would make that motion because I think these are very good projects. So.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second, further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And
Thank
just
you.
for the record, Commissioner Mariano has joined us, so welcome, sir.
Thank you.
All righty, before we move on, there's an item, I think Commissioner Mariano.
Sorry.
It's my brain today. Commissioner Moore.
So, thank you. Real quick, I'll make this easy for everybody. We have discussed Old Pasco Road on numerous occasions about getting it put back on the LRTP. I know we had at our Board of County Commission meetings when we approved the industrial part, I had the support of the board to get Old Pasco Road put back on the LRTP. So what I asked today is just, I would like to make a motion to have Old Pasco put back on the LRTP. So it would make it much easier when we're having these discussions with our legislators and trying to get those dollars moved to our area, that we would have that opportunity to do that. So I'd like to make the motion to have Old Pasco Road back on the LRTP. If I can get a second, that'd be great.
Second.
Thank you.
We have a motion, we have a second, further discussion?
Excuse me, can you specify what segment of Old Pasco Road, or is it from 52 to overpass?
The entire, all the way,
All the way.
all the way.
All the way to make it a 4-lane road?
Some of us will be taken care of
Yes,
with different projects.
yes.
So I would
Commissioner
want to
Schreiber.
discuss that because I don't know what the ramifications of that are to our long-range transportation.
Well,
plan.
and I have a question for staff, is that do you need to do any kind of public notice to amend the LRTP? So that needs to be noticed, you can't
Well,
just they have to bring that back to you to amend the LRTP. You
I
can't-
understand, but can I make the motion to make that happen?
Yes,
So
you
we
can
have to
make
have
a
a
motion,
motion.
if the
This board
motion
has
is
to
to
make a
direct
motion.
staff to bring that back,
Yeah,
that you can do, but I don't think you can amend it just by motion.
I understand.
that's what you're asking.
Yeah.
All right, so you mentioned, so
Thank you.
making a motion to bring it back so that we can get into the LRTP. That is the motion, it was seconded, a further discussion.
That's
Just a little
fine.
discussion. I think the timing is actually, as much as it's critical for us in Pasco County, with the elections we've just had, and from what I just heard of the new appointment up there, we're gonna be in pretty good shape, I think.
Yeah. Things do work out, right? Thank you.
Perfect, further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, board
Thank
members.
you, sir. Okay, on to Pasco County Public Transport Report Update. Did I do something wrong, Steve? No.
Howdy.
Skipping the line, okay. Okay.
Good morning, or good afternoon,
yeah.
almost, it's
We're a
close
little off
enough.
today.
Kurt Scheibel, Pasco County Public Transportation Director. As you know, and you all participated in our transportation development plan just this summer, and one of the major recommendations that came out of that was expansion of current services, i.e. up and down 19. That was the #1 thing on the list when everything was all, put together and added. So we're moving on with that. We're going to start a planning process to determine how much it's going to cost, what the impacts are, do we need to get more, how many buses, people, the whole bit. So you should start seeing more and more of me talking about increasing service along 19 and eventually increasing service on our other routes that are also high volume. We're also continuing, last year we came forth with a business proposal to increase, to add a route up and down Shady Hills. We're in the middle of that process and getting ready to go out for public comment, so you may hear some of that from your constituents or folks out there that we're going to be adding a route up and down Shady Hills Road. The current route right now is up Hicks, and as Commissioner, I believe Mariano said last time, we had to kind of do a jog around to get to Denton, down Denton until it turns into Peace, up to Shady Hills and turn around up there, connecting with our partners up in Hernando, and then coming back down and connecting to our system too. Looks like we're going to be able to do 1 hour headway, so there'll be 2 buses on there, and we'll be moving forward with that. But there'll be some public meetings, probably one in here also, just so we can get both sides of the county and moving forward. Other than that, we're going strong and serving our customers. Any questions for me?
Question. Commissioner Mariano.
Yeah, on the route that we talked about going up Hicks Road, hitting on Denton, that would actually take people that maybe get stuck at Bayonet Point Hospital, get them up to the Premier Healthcare up on Denton Avenue, also connecting the parks.
Yes, sir.
The key link we talked about a long time ago was the connection on Hicks Road from, Hicks Road goes up from 52 all the way up to New York Avenue, and then it ends, you gotta go due left.
Yeah.
There was a developer that wanted to come in with a project, Mr. Bowles, I think is familiar with it. And when it was gonna come in, it looked like he may do the development if we donated the land to go build the road. That road is probably a key piece. Has that been factored in any of your discussions about making recommendations to the MPO that we need to get that road finished to make that connection straight up instead of having to go out, over and back?
Well, once we get more word on it, because I told my team about that, and they're trying to find what the actual construction is and looking on the different websites and so forth. The one thing we did notice, so if we go up the way we've got right now, there is a big section of HUD housing on the corner on Denton and where we make the corner there. And we actually go right on 2 sides of it. And we would have to really look to see if we want to, where the road you come into, can we still serve those customers there? Because I could see them being a huge, customer base for us. And being able to use that to get where they need to go, either south into Pasco County or maybe up north or anywhere along the services along, Denton, Peace, and Shady Hills where we're going from. So that was kind of something we weren't aware of until just recently, part of looking in exactly what you were talking about, that one road through that complex.
Yeah, I think you'll still, if they're on Denton Avenue, you're gonna get them when you come across. And I don't get to that far south if there's something a little bit to the south that they can walk to get up there. So that Denton Avenue would be the key piece. You'd be on Denton as well, so they wouldn't be cut out of the mix.
Well, yes, sir. We'll take a hard look at where that development complex is and what type of road they're building, et cetera. But we will look at that because right now it's about a 45-minute-ish non-peak hour one-way trip is what they told me yesterday.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Additional questions, comments? Commissioner Starr.
I just have a request. Kurt, could you send me that email you sent to Michelle that shows the route from Metropolitan Ministries to, the bus route from Metropolitan Ministries to Premier
Yes,
Health?
yes,
Thanks.
ma'am.
You sent it to Michelle, so I can't pull it up.
I understand.
Okay, thank you.
When I talked to Michelle on that, we both looked at that. If the person coming out of Metropolitan Ministries would walk to 19, they can actually catch a bus and go right up there. They have to make a connection with our 14 bus, but it would drop them off within a half mile, or not even a half mile, it's like 0.4 miles according to Google, up there by Premier, because we don't have a route that goes right in front of Premier. Or if they wanted to walk up to Moog Road, they can walk up to Moog Road, and then they don't have to change buses. The bus ride, according to Google Transit, was about 34 minutes.
Yeah, I just want to see those routes, so if you could, I think you had mapped them out on an email.
Yeah, I just did Google and snapped it.
Yeah, so just send that to me. Both bus routes and times.
No problem, ma'am. No problem at all.
Thank you.
Further questions? Thank you, Kurt. Appreciate that. All right, and now, Mr. Steve Benson from FDOT, I believe we're going to do the District 7 5-year tentative work program presentation.
Good morning. At the dais are these booklets. The first half is the list of projects that are in the FDOT's tentative work program in Pasco County. And then the back half are maps that you can actually fold out and take a look at, and it shows you every project that we have funded, as well as the funding schedule. Stephen Benson, FDOT. Thank you. And then this is the just the reminder that our public hearing starts next week for the work program. But today, I'm going to give you just a brief overview of some of the highlights. So what you'll see in the book in front of you is all the projects, even projects that we've funded and reported to you in previous years. The presentation I'm going to kind of go over with you now is what we've changed. So it's just the changes or the adds or deletes and that sort of thing. So this new work program is going to run from fiscal year 2020 to fiscal year 2024, which covers projects and phases from July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2023. Year one is the proposed budget, and then years 2 through 5 are provided for production planning purposes. And then this work program includes all of DOT's projects, as well as projects where we're providing grant funding or we're involved. It does not include local projects that the county might be doing or that are in the CIP. The way we update the work program every year is we start, this is the current program, fiscal year 19 to fiscal year 23. On June 30th, fiscal year 19 will drop out, and year 2 becomes year 1. And then we add that new 5th year there, and that's where most of the new projects are going to come in, is that new 5th year, because that's where the new funding comes. This is where we're currently at in the process. Everything is tentative for the new work program, and so we want to get your input and get public input before we go ahead and send it up to Tallahassee. When we update our work program, the priorities that we have is number 1 is to preserve the projects that are already in there. If there are cost increases or schedules that need to change, we adjust those. The second priority is to update all the cost estimates to make sure that they're accurate and reflect any changes that have occurred during the past year. And then the third priority is to add new projects or new phases to existing projects. Like if we funded design but not construction, then we'll fund construction. Or if we funded planning but not design, we'll fund design. So the projects that we add are, of course, based upon all of the different types of focus areas: safety, system preservation, capacity, operational improvements. And they are based upon the priorities set by this MPO, as well as the priorities set by the TMA, by T-BARDA, and by the department through our Strategic Intermodal System Plan. So again, I'm going to be going over the acronyms here are going to be pretty typical. The one that might throw you off is PE. PE is design. It's preliminary engineering. And then there are select projects that might be of interest that I'm just going to go over as well. So starting at the top, the first project, State Road 52, Schrader Highway from US 41 to Bellamy Brothers. We have fully funded the right-of-way for that project through fiscal year 2024, so we will be ready for construction funding next year's work program update. State Road 52 at or Meridian Avenue at 21st Street. This is a new roundabout. Design was added in 2020. US 98 at Trilby, another new roundabout. Construction funding was added in 2020 as well. US 98 Trilby landscaping at that same roundabout was also added in 2020. County Road 54, Wesley Chapel Boulevard, from Magnolia Boulevard to Oakley Boulevard. Add lanes, construction was added in 2023. State Road 581, Bruce B. Downs at State Road 54. This is an operational improvement at that intersection. Design was added in 2020 and construction in 2022. I-75 from Blanton Road, northbound on-ramp to the Hernando County line, landscaping in 2020. I-75 from St. Joe Road overpass to Lake Lola Road overpass, drainage improvement, construction was added in 2020. Intersection lighting upgrades at various locations throughout the county. Construction funds were added in 2020. State Road 54 from Gun Highway to Altamont Lane, design was added in 2022 and construction in 2024. For pedestrian and bicycle, Old County Road 54 from State Road 54 to Little Road. New sidewalk, design was advanced from 2022 to 2021. So this is an example of one that did move up because funding was available in the work program to advance design. That's an example of one. And then construction was added in 2023. And then Congress Street from Lomond Ave to Ridge Road sidewalk construction was dropped.
Can I ask a question on that one?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mariano.
There's a couple of them coming up. Why was that dropped, and who made the request to have it dropped?
It was dropped from our work program. It doesn't mean it was dropped from the county's work program. And so I believe what's happened is the county's been able to move that one forward with local funds.
Okay.
We're doing it earlier than.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just we report it, it shows up as a drop on our
All
end.
right, I thought we were still doing it, so.
Yes, sir.
I didn't get a chance to talk with you, John, but I tried to.
Ridge Road sidewalk gaps, construction was dropped again, I think because the county's advancing it, so that one won't show up in here anymore. Over the 5 years, this program accounts for $309.2 million invested in Pasco County. There's the split of the different types of projects, about $30 million for transit, $230 million for capacity, and about $1.5 million for bike ped standalone projects. Doesn't include bike ped projects that are part of other projects, like part of a widening. These are the standalone ones. And then, did you have a question?
Well, I wish I had
Yes.
my BPAC numbers with me, because what is the total amount of money available in the district for that bike ped?
For bike ped?
Uh-huh.
It varies from year to year.
What is it in?
You mean the allocation or the number of funding
The
amounts on the
allocation,
projects?
I remember that it had a number like 30 million.
Mm-hmm. So this doesn't include when we put a trail like onto a capacity project. We might be doing that with TA funds, but it's part of the capacity project. That's why capacity is so high. This is like it's only like if it's a standalone sidewalk. So it doesn't mean we're only spending 1.5 on bike ped. It really should say bike ped standalone project, not part of any other project. Like the trail on US 301, that was part of the widening, and so that was
Right.
wrapped up in there.
So, but don't you have a line item for bike ped standalone projects
Mm-hmm.
for the region?
We have an allocation of funding that we get.
And what
yes.
is that? What is that allocation? Do you recall?
It depends. There's 4 different types. One type is for the TMA, so that's funding that has to be shared across the whole TMA. It's about $4 million a year. The other type is for any county in District 7 to be used, and that is also about $4 million a year. And so that's why it depends upon what project is in what year that gets what money, because some money Pasco is eligible for, some money Pasco is not eligible for.
So I just thought at the BPAC you showed a number that was like
Mhm.
35 million. And I recall our chair really raising his eye to that and wondering.
Oh, as it being too high, you mean?
Is Russ here?
Yes.
Russ?
It could be central. We also put our own funding on bike ped projects, so that maybe that's not being reflected there. But I'll double check what was presented at BPAC and report back
Yeah,
to you.
can you email that to me, the presentation from DOT?
Yeah.
I may have it in here. I might dig through here. Why
Okay.
isn't Ross, is it Ross or Russ? Why isn't he here? Okay, no answer. Okay,
Well, there's
thank
no
you.
one from BPAC here too, so I don't know.
Well, he's part of the MPO.
Yeah, no, you're
And
right,
he's-
you're right. Somebody should have been here as representative, but, while we're asking questions, can I
Yes.
go back and just ask about,
Sure.
State Road 52 and Meridian at 21st? And
Yes.
thank you for putting that there. That again is another very long-awaited project. I do want to ask about signage. So is that included as part, I know there's different phases here, so is there some point in time that we can make sure that signage is included in directing people in different ways there, since it is kind of a crazy area?
Absolutely. We're looking to start design somewhere around, somewhere after July 1st. That's when fiscal year 2020 starts. So once we have an engineer, there's already an engineer assigned to it, but no consultant has started working. So once they start working, we can give them direction like that, in terms of what signs to include and how to lay them out. So that would start once this design phase begins. We can do that.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Additional questions?
I do have one more slide.
Manny, I'll take that too if you want to send the BPAC. Yeah, I think that would be good to have, since there's so much going on in East Pasco with that, if we have that as well. Sorry, Steve, we're just trying to get that BPAC information. Additional questions for Stephen on any of these items? Commissioner Stark.
So I've had some wonderful conversations with the secretary about helping us find funding for some of our overpasses, our bike ped overpasses. One being at State Road 54, and just wondered if that conversation has moved forward. And the other one at Starkey and 54, And I told Mr. Biles, my last conversation with the secretary was that they thought maybe they needed more right-of-way, and that the district cannot condemn or take property for pedestrian overpasses. But I told him I know the landowner to the south will donate any right-of-way we need, and we were gonna check to see what we needed on the north side of the road. So Margaret, just wondered if you had those conversations yet. And asked Mr. Biles to get with you on that. And I think I sent you something. So, does anyone know where we are on those conversations?
I can't speak
No.
with regard to the right-of-way, but I know that we are looking at the feasibility of the overpass and laying out in terms of where it would actually potentially go.
Which
and
one?
Where it would hit.
Which one? This
Starkey.
coast-to-coast overpass? Let's
The
call
one
it
over
that,
54.
so-
Yeah.
Using my name. The coast-to-coast overpass.
Yes.
So,
But it's very preliminary. It's just to
Right.
basically develop costs and determine what it would take to design and build it.
Okay.
And so that way we know what to program next cycle. It came in too late. All these projects were applications that were submitted in February. So it takes us like 6 to 8 months to actually add new projects in. So when I come present this to you again next year, that's when we'll show what we've added based upon what we've learned over the past year.
okay,
So-
and what about the one at 54 and the Suncoast? Because we're moving along pretty well with that one, I think. You guys are, who's in design on that one? Who's
That would
handling
be-
it? Aren't we partnering with DOT on that overpass?
So we've had some internal meetings. We're working with Keith Wiley and Renee on this, and we met with staff, and we are setting up some meetings with DOT and the Turnpike about this. So we're trying to bring all the stakeholders in, because it's actually going to be more than just the overpass, because the bathrooms are going there. We're talking about the trailhead. So we wanted to get all of our thoughts together on how we want to convey this to them. So I don't think Sam's working on this with us.
Yeah.
Sam's kind of the lead on
Yeah.
this. So we don't have a meeting set up yet, but we have talked about something probably after the first of the year, because they're stakeholders and will be partners with us. But we're paying for it. It's
But
coming
I
out of
know-
penny
I-
funds.
I know we are paying for it, but Secretary Gwynn said he'd help us find money to pay for it.
I'm happy with that too.
I
We
am,
can do
I know,
that.
I'm very happy with that.
Very
We
happy.
can take that money and use it to further the Orange Belt Trail and other areas, so.
And we're working on that too. There's
Yeah.
going to be a request for qualifications that's sent out. We've had some, there's been a lot of interest for people that want to do the PD&E, because we're going to do it as a PD&E. That means that it opens it up for federal funding opportunities.
Nice,
So we are moving on both those projects.
okay.
Councilman Stark, did you have a
This
question?
might be more of a question for staff, but FDOT is an integral part of it. What is the projected date to receive the results from the feasibility study for the underpass at US 19?
So the underpass study is just in the final stages. I believe we updated Commissioner Mariano, but it's in the final stages of getting approval from the other cities. And then once that's confirmed, the consultant is ready to go. So we believe 3 to 6 months
3 to 6
to do
months?
that project.
So by June, we should have it.
We're hoping this summer, early fall. So we're just waiting for the cities to sign the interlocal agreement. That's the final stage.
Well, it shouldn't take 3 to 6 months to do that. Newport Ridge, you'll sign anything you're ready for us to sign. I'm a little confused.
Signing won't take 3 to 6
Okay.
months, but the study itself should be 3 to 6 months.
Right, I thought the study was gonna take 6 months, but we talked about this 2 to 3 months ago.
We
So
did.
it still hasn't started?
But the issue is this county staff is working closely with the cities and the attorneys have been involved, so they had delays in getting that final interlocal signed.
So we're probably not gonna have it in front of us till the end of the summer, early fall then.
At this stage, I would say we're still shooting for June or July. We're gonna push the study to be sooner than later. Once it's in their hands, we have more control
Okay, thank you.
with the consultant.
Commissioner Mariano?
Yeah, if I could follow up with that. So as far as let's say, the city of Newport Richey, do they have the paperwork, or is it still being?
Everybody has the paperwork. They were just finalizing details between the cities and the attorneys, so.
How long have they had the paperwork?
Probably a month and a half.
Okay. All right, I can't believe, I know you would have it
Yeah,
through
it's-
your end, and I know Mayor Massett would have it through on his end, so if there's a tie-up, let's have that conversation with scheduling a meeting to try to finalize.
Yeah, I'll contact Ms. Mann. It's a priority project for the city of Newport, and I doubt it's just been sitting on its own desk for a month and a half. So I'll figure out what's going on and get you what you need as soon as possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know Port Richey wants to see it done yesterday too, so.
We understand.
Okay.
Commissioner Moore?
Yeah, Madam Chair, thank you. I know one of the discussions though, because I don't want us to, I want to make sure we're not throwing our staff under the bus on this one, is that we are waiting on some funding from the city of Port Richey too. So did that ever come through?
All of that has been resolved.
So that's done now? Okay, well, good.
Yes.
So that's good.
Uh,
So it's in their hands. It's in the city's hands.
It's happening.
We're just waiting for it to come back.
Exactly.
All right, so yeah, so obviously if Councilman Starkey, and then I don't think we have anybody from here from Port Richey can talk to their respective
Yeah, we'll get it back to
city
you
managers.
sooner than
So
later.
maybe
for
what we
sure.
need to do is ask again when we come back from the holiday and just get an update and just make sure.
Yes,
it's-
and we were
it's going.
scheduling in maybe February to give you an update on the whole thing. I think Commissioner Marion had asked and was given a brief update from county staff. We're working on it.
So rather than wait till June and find out where, yeah, I think that.
I would say is
Mariano.
just in that the excitement of this project has been so high, I think as soon as you get word that you've got the paperwork from both cities, then you should probably do an email to all the MPO members who will be sitting down.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Stephen, where are we at?
I
Yes,
just
the critical
wanted
dates.
to make you aware that the public comments for this are due December 31st, but MPO board comments have until January 28th to include those to send them up. So if there are comments you have, you could bring it back next month and vote on them if you'd like. And
Thank you, Stephen.
that's all I have. Thank you.
Question or comments for Stephen?
Oh, and I'm sorry. The Turnpike is also here to present
Okay.
their work program as well. Thank you.
Perfect. Your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Jim Martin. I'm with the Florida Turnpike. Our office is at the Turkey Lake Service Plaza on the Turnpike main line. And thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me to come by and talk about the Turnpike's improvements, planned improvements to the Suncoast Parkway. I think you'll be pretty happy with some of these. Commissioner Oakley, we have for you a new interchange there at Ridge Road that will be constructed in 2020 for about 12.5 million.
That is not his
I
district.
was going to
just
say, I
saying.
think it's
Your
down the
area?
other way, right?
All right.
Then we're all happy.
All
But
right.
we'll all claim it.
You all claim that one. All right, super. And somebody's going to get it. I'm happy with that.
It's all good.
The other part of the news we're bringing in, and will be some improvements to the State Road 54 interchange northbound. As many of you know, that northbound traffic on the Suncoast Parkway backs up pretty badly. So what we're doing is adding more turn lanes as you exit off the ramp there. The actual configuration of how many more left-hand turn lanes and right-hand turn lanes have not been all settled out. We're going to do traffic counts and do all the modeling to see what best fits in that limited amount of right-of-way. But that also will be in construction in, I believe, 2020. So we're very excited about that. You have in front of you a map that shows the few projects there. I mentioned the State Road 54 ramp improvements construction actually is 2021, not 2020. And at that, I think I'd like to go ahead and open it up for questions. I think Stephen did an excellent job on describing the DOT's work program process, as Turnpike as another branch of the Turnpike follows the same scheduling criteria.
Questions?
So,
Commissioner Starkey?
couple things. A couple years ago, we had your landscape person from Suncoast join us, and I believe the DOT landscape person joined us too, because if we don't ask for it, we know we need to ask for it to get the landscaping that we hope to have. And we were told at the MPO meeting when she presented that we would be getting increased landscaping once you're done with your projects. And just want to make sure that all our intersections will look, just as nice as the ones south of us.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. I'll take that information and request back to the board. I don't have any additional information to address that for you today, but I'll be glad to come back and try to provide more information to you.
And can you get me that information of when she presented to us, guys? Because I'm trying to remember the date of when she was here, so I'd like to for you to look back and see when we can.
With Carol? Okay.
And Tower Road is not on our 5-year work plan, and I don't know, we haven't had our vision map yet, so I don't know where we are in the discussions of the Tower Road flyover.
I'm glad the flyover, the entire interchange will be having a coordination meeting tomorrow afternoon, actually, with the county staff and MPO, looking at that, discussing things such as the funding, the proximity to State Road 54. There are a lot of things going there, but with a sincere recognition by the Turnpike that there is a lot of development going on up there and how that affects 54 and the Turnpike Suncoast Parkway. So we hope to have some progress meetings very soon and be able to start having some sort of movement on that with the discussions following with the county.
All right, and lastly, we still have no resolution on moving pedestrians and cyclists east and west from one side of the Suncoast to the other. We looked at going under, and then the last time I had a discussion with our staff and DOT staff, well, we went over to District 7 offices, and y'all came from your office, and I thought we had a good meeting, and then I've never heard anything from that meeting. So I don't know who was supposed to move the ball forward, or when we were supposed to hear what a solution might be. I recall Sam saying to us that as they were looking at the 54 site pedestrian overpass, that they might find a solution for east-west safe movement. But that intersection is super heavy with traffic, and even looking at it today again, there is no safe way to go east and west if you're a pedestrian.
And underneath there, it is a tight right of way, and with the volumes of traffic. I do believe, as was noted earlier, I think the connector at 54 anyway, was part of the Pennies for Pasco, some improvements there. If I'm mistaken, I apologize.
Yeah.
But the lead for that has been with the county so far. We'll be making ourselves available if any discussions come forward on how and when that would be funded and programmed. But right now, the Turnpike does not have anything in our work program that addresses that overpass, but we'll have to work with the county or the District 7 offices to.
So one of the solutions that actually Jim Woods made from Tallahassee was that we advance the Tower Road pedestrian flyover. So that was suggested from Tallahassee. We thought we had a good temporary solution to go under, and that's kind of stalled. So at this point, we have like this Berlin Wall separating one side of our county from the other, and we need a solution.
It is a safety concern, and the DOT's priority above capacity and everything else would be for safety, and that includes for pedestrians and bikes. So again, we'll make ourselves available as the District 7, and you said you've talked to David Gwynn, Secretary at the District 7.
But that's for north-south traffic. We don't have a
doesn't
discussion of how we're going to east-west. Margaret's getting ready to walk up behind you, so maybe she knows something I don't know yet, or we don't know yet.
So I'm just looking at the calendar, and there is a meeting tomorrow with, let me look who's on there.
For the Tower Road.
For the Tower Road, yeah, to talk about Tower Road.
Including the pedestrian flyover?
Well, it's talking about interchanges, so I'm pretty sure that's on. Isn't that on the
I didn't set
calendar
the agenda for that.
Just make sure you include
from
that.
the county, and I know Paris is one who actually scheduled that meeting. There are a lot of discussions on that: the funding, the location, the configuration, its proximity to State Road 54. There's normally spacing. How do we handle that growth? But there is a meeting tomorrow, and I guess we'll just make sure that when that Ali has the meeting with them tomorrow, that he includes that as part of the discussion, if you don't mind. Because as Ali and I were talking about earlier, part of that Tower Road is, one option would actually relocate the trail on the west side of the Suncoast when the Tower Road gets put in. But that's just one of many options, so there's still a lot of discussion about the trail and crossover there, and it will start tomorrow.
And I thought I recalled at our meeting that they were talking about donating that land to the county and getting it out of the Turnpike's property, like moving the line of the property. Is that?
I've also heard that, but I'll have to excuse myself in the fact that I'm still fairly new, taking Carol's
Okay.
place, who's not with us here today. She actually got a promotion over to another district and just recently came back to the Turnpike, so she's now my boss, but I don't have the experience and the historical knowledge that she has. But I've also heard that. I couldn't tell you what the status of that or how much reality is in that that jurisdictional transfer, if you will. But so far the county has been, as far as I know, a very good partner in maintaining and operating that facility, and I think
It's well loved.
well loved. And I speaking about liking one another, I have to say the MPO staff, Allie, and the rest of them have been very cooperative and good folks to work with, and being the end of the year and Christmas time, I'll give a gift of thanks to the staff and how hard they represent you
When
all.
is our toll thing coming down on 54 in the Suncoast?
The toll thing, the gantries, or
Wherever you go through and you put the money in, that toll booth thing?
We're transitioning all our facilities. I could not tell you, but we're
get asked
for everybody. It's called the all electronic tolling, and basically we're getting rid of coins on anywhere on the Turnpike, whether it's the main line or on the Suncoast or any of our South Florida. It's all being done electronically, either through transponders, toll by plate, things like that. We're trying to get
That gantry
over
is there, so we're just all wondering when you're taking out the old system, so we could, I think it flows much faster.
Right. I wish I had an answer for that phase of our transition to the, it's called AET, All Electronic Toll System. I don't have it for that particular facility, but again, I'll be here more often. We can keep these discussions going. Thank
Great, thank you. Any other comments? Commissioner Mariano, before we
Thank
move
you.
on.
Yeah, I think Commissioner Starker brings up good points. We need to plan for these east-west connections, but the north-south connections too. I'd love to see the Turnpike Authority get involved with us a little bit more. You know, whether it be 54 going north-south, as well as 52. We just had to move 52 back because of funding, even though we're putting money for funding for Penny for Pasco, said we're going to do it. Is there a way we can get the Turnpike to actually come and partner with us to get these done that are on us?
Not that I'm aware of. The Suncoast Trail itself was one of a kind in the state. It was funding that was, as I believe it was called a, I don't want to call it an experimental project, trial project, pilot project. Hadn't been repeated yet. To continue that on, I don't know whether that pilot is still ongoing and those opportunities are still there. But I will look into it and see if there's something else that can be done. Or, you know, has there been an evaluation on the success of that pilot program? Personally, I'm very much in favor of the trails and those type of cooperations. It's a good use. I also have been a Pasco resident. My son still lives over here, so I think it's a good facility, and whatever we can do to facilitate that would be of interest.
I mean, because we've got skin in the game. We're just looking for a little bit of help to speed up those projects along that.
Certainly.
And that's good for, as well as your own income. It's good for the safety of the people that are, you know, going right around it.
And again, stressing safety, and Commissioner Starkey had been stressing, you know, the activity and then the funding for bike ped things. The district has a lot of funds available, and there are other funds at a state level with Sun Trail and other things like that. So the question is, have we expended all the options for those fundings in this area and so forth?
We just approved a major project right up in the north part of 52 that you get 7,000 homes being built, and was it 24 million square feet of commercial coming in for jobs that could come? To help your tolls even collect even more money by helping those trails, it'll definitely help everything else move along there.
Well, just to stress the fact that our interest isn't to collect tolls, it's to provide transportation alternatives and safety through a toll alternative. A lot of people look at the Turnpike as a business. We do use a business model, but in fact we are just another DOT district. They use gas taxes, we use toll funds. We're just another state agency. So again, the interest of, you know, raising more money. We're not paying the, you know, chairman, the CEO, you know, high funds or anything else like that. We're just trying to provide this region in this case, the Suncoast Parkway, with better transportation and more options for their dollars.
Okay.
Great, thank you. More questions?
One more question. We had it looked at Cruise Lake. There's a bridge that's along the toll. that was gonna go across, it connects to, I think it's East Road, then Peace Road, then over Denton, right at the US 19. That was getting looked at, but I don't see it anywhere in your report. Do you have any update or any information on that?
I do not.
All right, if you could ask and maybe make that part of the conversation.
Okay.
So Cruise Lake, there's a bridge that's already there?
I'm sorry, it was called Cruise Lake?
Cruise Lake, yes.
Thank you.
All right, are there any further questions? I know we still have a couple other items and some that might take a little longer, so are there anything else you need to add, sir?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, and thank you, we appreciate the update, and keep us posted. All right, this is item number B under status reports, the Wesley Chapel Connection Study Project Update. Let me first remind those that are here today that this is informational only for the MPO board. We are not taking any official action. We're going to start by hearing the presentation. I know there are many of you that have signed up, so once we hear the presentation, we'll open it up for your to come to the podium and give your name and address and speak.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
if I may, I have to excuse myself in about 10 minutes. My son is in elementary school, has a project he's presenting over Newport Richie, and I don't want to miss it. So, not that I don't want to hear what y'all are going to say. I'll watch the meeting back and I'll read the minutes and everything, but I just want to be rude by leaving before the public
And in all
comment.
fairness, we did start later today, so we understand that. So thank you for letting us know that, and I'm sure they can reach you if they need to. So with that, your name and address, please, and then we'll continue on.
Yes, I'm Megan McKinney with AECOM, 7650 West Courtney Campbell Causeway, Tampa, Florida, 33607.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I'm here today just to present the results, the draft study results of the Wesley Chapel Roadway Connection Study Project. We provided this pretty much the same presentation to the public back in April. There's just been a few minor tweaks. I'm going to try to go through it a lot faster than I did that night. I know a couple of you have already seen it. So just to get started, we're going to kind of go through the background information of the project process and the schedule moving forward, the alternatives we evaluated as part of the study, the travel demand forecasting procedure and some of the findings, and then the improvements we found that were needed as a result of the study, and then a summary at the end. So this just shows you the study area map. It's essentially 56 on the north. We've got Rispey Downs on the west, Morris Bridge on the east, and then we basically stopped in terms of analysis. For analysis purposes, we didn't do anything south of the county line. The connections that we're evaluating as part of this study are the connection of Kinnan and Mansfield, also the connection of Meadow Point Boulevard, those are the red circles on the map, and Winfield's Boulevard south into Hillsborough County. So these three roadway connections have been in the long-range transportation plan actually for many years, as long as I've been at AECOM, I believe 17 years they've been around. The reasons we wanted to do this study is we wanted to get public input to hear if views have changed since the days of the past. We wanted to also look at safety improvements. We have a couple schools along the road. We want to make sure that the children are safe and that we look at everything that can be done to help them. We also wanted to look at intersection operational improvements that may be needed as a result of the connections or a combination thereof, and any bicycle pedestrian improvements. And then we also looked at the timing, an estimate of the timing and the cost of the improvements that would be needed. So again, we actually had two public workshops for this. So we had one in April of 2017 and one in May of 2018. And again, the point was to gather information and comments from the public to help us conduct the study and maybe focus on some of the issues that the public may have. We had 235 attendees total for both workshops. We received about 207 comments in total, and we also did receive one petition. At the time, there was 56 signatures. Now that's a little bit higher than that. I think last I checked, it was about 600. The main comments, a little bit higher. The main comments we received as a result of the workshops is that the roadways can't handle the traffic load, and also the safety of the school children. So this kind of shows the project process and the schedule moving forward. We had the first, again, public workshop in April of 2017. We completed a draft study report on May 15th, and we had another public meeting to present the results of the report, which again is what we're presenting today, in May of 2018. We provided a public comment period for that report. It was a 30-day public comment period. And then here we are today briefing you. Then the next step is we're going to take any comments we get from you today, as well as some of the comments we've received from the public from the last workshop, which we've been working diligently on. Kind of try to incorporate those into the report, answer any questions you may have, and then incorporate that into the final study report. That's about February. Then we're going to do a public opinion poll, which is a citizen survey, and it's going to be a very simple survey. It's just going to have the various alternatives listed in here, as well as one additional one that was not evaluated in this study report. And it's going to be a yes, no, in favor, against connections.
Excuse me, just to interrupt.
Yes,
the May MPO board meeting for recommendation, that you just approved the MPO board schedule for next year. That May meeting is going to be in Newport Richie, but so we have to change that, rethink that May. So the schedule may have to be revised. Okay, so we won't have the May. May is in Newport Richie. We want
Commissioner-
all the Wesley Chapel meetings to be here.
Okay, Commissioner Moore?
Just in reference to Megan's statement on the survey too, and we had some deep discussions on the survey and then making sure there's the validity of the survey is there. So I think what we talked about is they're going to need to include their address, they're going to need to include an email, they're going to need to include a phone number, because they're going to double check some of these and make sure that these are the people answering the survey. And that was one of the concerns and some of the concerns of the residents out there. So staff has worked hard and they found a way to do that now, so that can be validated, that we don't have people out, phishing and just pumping out surveys that don't actually live in Pasco County. So
Correct.
that was a big concern. So thank you for that.
Yes,
Continue.
no problem. Thank you.
Madam Chair, quick question
Yes,
as
sir.
well.
Commissioner Mariano.
So just to be clear, when you do this survey, is going to ask for each intersection, yes or no, on each individual one?
No, probably what we'll have, and moving forward, we're kind of going to kind of go through the alternatives we evaluated, but we most likely, I don't think we'll have a Mansfield-only option. I don't think many are in favor of only opening Mansfield, and as well, it is tied to some development conditions that they would all be open at once. So we will probably have Meadow Point and Winfields together, and then we would have Meadow Point only, and then all three. So they'll have various levels of which to choose from, of which combination of connections they could potentially want.
Thank you.
Okay. Again, after we do the poll, we're going to incorporate that into the results, come back to you guys, show you the results of that poll, and then ultimately it will go to the board for approval or denial. So these are kind of the alternatives that we looked at. The first alternative we looked at always in a study is a no-build alternative. This would mean that there were no connections of any of those three roadways for general public use. However, there could potentially be a gate for emergency vehicles and bicycle pedestrian accommodations added at any of those connections. I know that was a question with Mansfield especially, and safety for the area residents. Alternative one that we looked at was, we actually started to look at was Mansfield connection only. However, again, because that was tied to conditions of other development approvals, we did not analyze that in detail. We had a kind of a limited scope. We had to pick and choose which alternatives we had actually the time and the money to look at more carefully. Alternative 2 looks at the Mansfield-Kennon connection and the Meadow Point Boulevard extension connection. Alternative 3 is just the Meadow Point Boulevard extension only. And alternative 4 actually has all three connections. For travel demand forecasting, we had to look at what actually might be out there in the future. So we used the industry standard, which is the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Model. It's the model that DOT and all the counties use. You guys use it for your LRTP update. All alternatives, both the no-build and the build, include the 2040 long-range plan cost affordable improvements for the surrounding roadways in all of the counties. That's kind of important to remember, and we'll touch on that again later. So that means that it includes the 8-laning of Bruce B. Downs, south of County Road, State Road 56, the 4-laning open from Mansfield to 301, which they're building now. And it also includes the new Tampa East-West Road extension, which is a new 4-lane road from Commerce Park Boulevard to I-275. Those are just a few of what it includes immediately within the area. Then the model also looks at population and employment data to ensure that there's reasonable growth projected in the area. We took an extensive amount of time. Part of the reason it's taken so long to get here is we sat down with staff and we went through all of the developments in the area and the conditions and the timing, and we really tried to have a good idea of what was going to be out there on the road when we projected the volumes. So what we found with the traffic projections is that all alternatives, obviously the build and the no build, project significant increases in volumes above what's out there today. I don't think that's a surprise to anybody with all of the development that is planned in that area. What was a little bit more surprising was that the volumes for the build and the no build alternatives were actually similar for most of the roadways in the study area. This is kind of because basically you have an area where just by connecting the road, you're not necessarily adding more people to the area. You're merely just shifting the routes that they may use. So that's why a lot of the volumes are pretty consistent. The greatest difference that we found, or the greatest increase from the no-build alternative, everything we're doing is kind of as a baseline is the no-build alternative, okay? Because, again, everything's going to be much higher than existing no matter what. If you do nothing, it's going to be much higher. So what we're kind of trying to capture is what the difference is in the year 2040 between not doing anything or connecting. So the greatest increase from the no-build alternative occurs near Beardsley, where there's no connection today, on Mansfield Boulevard and Meadow Point Boulevard. Makes sense because, again, you're connecting, you're going to have a greater increase. And the greatest difference in the decrease from the no-build alternative is actually on Bruce P. Downs between County Line Road and Cross Creek. Now, when we presented this to the public back in May, we had a table with a bunch of volumes on it. I do have that in the very back here today, but I didn't want to bore you with going through all those numbers. It can get confusing. But now let's talk about the improvements. What we found with each of the alternatives was needed. This is the first road we're going to talk about is Mansfield Boulevard. So Mansfield Boulevard in 56, we would need an additional eastbound left and an additional through lane in each direction on 56. So 6 lanes in the future, which again is what's being shown in the needs plan. That's not a surprise in 2040 that we need 6 lanes on 56. Then we would need an additional northbound left and 2 additional southbound duals.
Excuse me, Commissioner Strachey.
Yes, ma'am.
This is what's planned no matter what? Or is this if we do?
No, this is what we determined was needed as a result of the traffic operations analysis that was done as a part of this study. So this is looking at, in 2040, what would be needed. And we did kind of look at if it's needed with or without the connections. Okay. There's this little box in the corner there. It provides kind of a time frame of when these improvements would be needed by, and then a cost associated with those improvements, as well as, you'll see it'll say needed with connections or needed without connections. Needed without connections means, in this case, it would be needed regardless, just because of the traffic growth.
Okay.
We took a kind of zoomed in view look at the school zone, because we think obviously it's very important to the public and us as well. We kind of split it into immediate needs based on our existing review of the area and some of the conditions that were going on, some of the input we'd received from the public. So what we found was at Wiregrass School Road, which is the main road that goes between the elementary and the middle school, we were suggesting that there was a new crosswalk needed on the north side of that intersection, which actually that improvement is funded and currently underway. It may even be, I don't know if Jack is still here, but it may actually even still be done or well on its way to being done. We think it's a good idea to have 2 crossing guards there for the safety of the children. This would be 1 existing and that is out there today, as well as adding 1 new crossing guard. And there currently is a traffic control officer already there. We watched video, and they're doing a great job getting kids across the street. At the middle school entrance, the middle school is probably the biggest issue that we saw in terms of queuing back onto Mansfield. So you had a lot of people queuing into the turn lane back to Rencrest on the south side. And you also had a lot of people who were going southbound right into the school backing up onto Mansfield and blocking traffic from progressing. So we suggest that it would be a good idea to add a traffic control officer there. As a matter of fact, the traffic control officer at Wiregrass School Road is only covered for the elementary school period, but we're proposing that you extend his hours, and then he can also move to the middle school. He'd actually be at the middle school first, earlier in the morning. And then the other comment we received from the public was that a lot of people, when they turn off of the side streets, they don't actually see a flashing warning sign. So there are a couple different locations. There may be more. That'll have to be, again, studied maybe a little bit later on, but where signage would need to be improved to help those people. Again, these are immediate, and I won't go through every single cost, but this is needed without the connections. Again, these are immediate needs. This is basically based on existing conditions that's out there right now. Okay, so then we also look at some improvements that would be needed prior to making the connection, if the connections were made. And we had a couple different options. So option one was actually currently the bus drop-off pickup area is on Mansfield for the middle school. And that is the driveway that's kind of causing blockage on Mansfield Boulevard. So the thought is that we could relocate that to the entrance on Wiregrass School Road and basically flop that and have the buses actually use the one off of Mansfield, which is a little more of a controlled environment when you're dealing with the buses versus personal vehicles. Along with that, concurrent with that, you'd want to signalize the intersection of Mansfield and Wiregrass School Road. So that's option one. Option two would just be to add a southbound right turn lane at the middle school. It would be an exclusive turn lane, and that way the school storage could queue and store inside of that lane. So the next intersection we looked at was Mansfield Boulevard and Rencrest Drive. Also down here, just kind of carrying forward the school improvements, is to extend the hours of the crossing guard that's currently there. Again, he was only kind of covering one period of school traffic. So if you extend their hours, they can cover both elementary and middle school students that might be using that area. And the other thing is to add a southbound left turn lane and to add a signal there when warranted. Again, the approximate time frame is between 2020, 2025, but the crossing guard is needed probably most likely immediately. This is also needed without the connections, so in the no-build scenario. Next, we have Mansfield and County Line Road. At this intersection, we would need a northbound left, an additional northbound left in the year between 2020 and 2025. It was also needed without the connections. We did, just to give you an idea, we did look at a roundabout at this location, but the bottom line is it needed 2 lanes. It was very wide, and you would have started clipping parking lots and you know, not houses necessarily, but utilities, other things. So it didn't necessarily make the most sense at this point. Okay, at Mansfield and Beardsley, we're looking at signalizing this one as well and adding an additional, or adding a exclusive westbound right turn lane. Need for this is within 2025 to 2030, and it's needed without the connections as well. Most of these are needed without the connections, except a few. Okay, another thing we heard, especially from the public, and we've coordinated with traffic operations, public works and stuff, are the resurfacing of these roads. A lot of them do have potholes and some cracking and rutting right now. So from Beardsley Drive to County Line Road, that seems to be the most critical one, and it would be needed, again, without the connections, based on an existing deficiency. And then between the Pasco-Hillsborough County line and Beardsley Drive, that would be needed roughly between 2022 and 2025, and also would be needed, or is recommended without the connections. Okay, so moving on, we're going to move on to the improvements on Meadow Point Boulevard. Again, we're going to start at 56. You do need some additional turn lanes and the additional through lane. Again, the 6 laning is carrying through over here to the east. That's needed roughly a little bit after the one to the west, but 2025 to 2030 timeframe, and it's needed without the connections. Okay, so this would be Meadow Point Boulevard and Old Woods Avenue. We did not do a detailed analysis at this intersection. It just wasn't part of our scope. However, you know, this would be needed when when signal warrants are met, and traffic operations has a set of standards that we all use for signal warrants and when they're needed. We did do a generalized cost for this one, and it would be needed without the connections. More of a safety improvement.
Can that one be a roundabout?
We did not evaluate a roundabout here.
That looks like a great spot for a roundabout, and then traffic keeps flowing.
Yeah, I mean, this is Meadow Point Boulevard. Eventually, Meadow Point going to be a 4-lane road. We got enough right-of-way for 4-lane. So we can look at roundabout and look at the existing 2-lane, but ultimately Meadow Point needs to be 4-lane road.
It's got to be 4 lanes.
I'm sorry.
Okay. So the next location we looked at was Meadow Point and Beardsley. A northbound left would be needed prior to any connections being made for safety, obviously. And then an eastbound right would be needed sometime later within 2035 and 2040. Now these are needed solely based on with the connections. If you don't make the connections, obviously you wouldn't need these two improvements. So this is one case where it's not needed necessarily based on just the projected growth, regardless of the connections. Okay, so the next, moving on, we only had those 3 locations on Meadow Point. We're going to look at Winfields Boulevard. Winfields Boulevard is a little bit of an unknown, as we know, because it's nothing out there to really analyze just yet. So in terms of 56, we had to look at just a very general, you know, turn lanes are going to be needed on each side and kind of come up with costs for those. But that will be needed regardless of connections. Okay, so Winfields Boulevard there, this is what you're looking at right now is the Union Park subdivision plans. You can see the blue road where the red star is actually an intersection where the Winfields, if it were extended down, would meet a road called Montgomery Bell Road. And at this location, you would need a northbound left turn lane and a southbound left turn lane. This is again needed if the connections are made for safety, mostly. It's not a capacity thing. And the time frame is going to just kind of be as the development itself occurs, and so that would need to be monitored as it's moved forward. Okay, and then this is the Winfield Boulevard extension, the actual extension itself, constructing this, basically the small piece down into Hillsborough County. Again, it would be needed as the development occurs, and it would be needed with the connections. We did take a planning level look at bicycle and pedestrian improvements. On Mansfield Boulevard, we found that currently there's a sidewalk gap identified south of Beardsley Drive on the east side. So we kind of did meet with traffic ops, public works, and try to figure out what type of improvement, where we would put it, you know, both sides, one side. It's going to have to be looked at, but it wasn't ready to be determined at this point because of right-of-way and stuff. So Debbie and her team and Jack are going to look at that further as we move forward. Meadow Point Boulevard, there was no sidewalk on the east side, and there's no bike lanes on the road. Additional bike and ped accommodations will be included, though, as part of the 4-lane widening, of course. On Winfields Boulevard, the county is going to ensure that bike ped improvements are included during plan reviews as they coordinate further with the developers of those communities. And most importantly, any bicycle and pedestrian accommodations made along those connections will be coordinated with the city of Tampa moving forward if those are made. Okay, so all those costs on those slides, what does it mean? We kind of wanted to have an idea of what the improvement costs would be if you made the connections versus what the improvement cost would be if you didn't make the connections. So again, essentially your build to your no build type of scenario. So at the end of the day, the improvement cost with the connections is about $15.7 million versus without the connections is about $13.8 million. So not that much different with or without. This kind of just summarizes the positives and the negatives of the connections. The positives are that you have an alternate route during accidents. So if something happens on Bruce B. Downs or one of the other side streets, you have an alternate route to go. You could potentially have an increase in retail sales in Pasco or Hillsborough County if people are traveling. It's easier to get someplace. There's a study that was cited, actually, it's on this slide if you want to see it further, but that shows, a correlation between how far people have to go, how easy it is for them to get there, and what their choices may be if they have more options. It also would provide convenient travel to any attractions in Hillsborough County. There are a lot of people that live in Pasco that may go visit some of the places in Hillsborough. Most importantly, I think from a transportation perspective, is it provides additional route options. We all have choices every day. I know I kind of vary my way to work and school every morning depending on the roads that I'm on, and I like the fact that having options provides people with choices and ways to disperse traffic in areas. But it also provides relief, again, to Bruce B. Downs between Cross Creek and County Line. It's actually up to 7,000 vehicles per day on that stretch. Now, obviously, the negatives are that there will be increased traffic on Pasco roads. That's just kind of a given. If you make the connection, people will come up, especially on Mansfield, Meadow Point, and Winfields, where the connections are made. There are additional improvements as well needed with the connections at Meadow Point and Beardsley and Winfields at Montgomery Bell Road. Those were the two intersections we showed you earlier. Traffic monitoring will need to be provided by the county and looked at, just to make sure that anything above and beyond the improvements that we're proposing or suggesting as a part of the study, if there's not anything more needed. And really, there's minimal congestion relief on the Pasco roads by adding the connections. Again, the biggest difference in decrease in volume is on Bruce B. Downs, but it's actually the county, Hillsborough County section. So it's not, again, why you're not necessarily reducing any congestion. It's more of just having the same people ability to use different routes. And that's really all I have today. Thank you guys for letting me come and give this. Hopefully I went faster than last time.
Thank you. Before we open it up for those that want to speak, Commissioner Moore.
No, I want to thank staff for this. I mean, it's been going on a long time. They've done a great job of studying and reaching out to the residents. And as you can see, there's quite a few people here today. We're not voting on this. If we were, we wouldn't have quorum anyway. So it wouldn't happen. But just something to think about, and my fellow MPO board members that are here to think about too. She made a statement just a second ago, and the statement was, it doesn't help our Pasco residents out when it comes to relieving traffic congestion.
We can't hear you guys.
Oh, okay. I'm pretty loud, but okay. Anyways, I'll go again. Is that better for you? Okay. You made a statement a second ago. What was that statement in reference to traffic relief for Pasco residents?
That by connecting those roads, you don't necessarily relieve congestion on Pasco County roads.
Right. So as an MPO board, our objective is to think about what benefits the citizens of Pasco County. This is the Pasco County MPO, okay? So when going through this, what benefit is there for Pasco County residents? Unfortunately, I'm not saying that Meadow Point Boulevard couldn't be beneficial in some ways, connecting that, but the Mansfield-Kennon, you saw the schools that are along there that increased traffic count from Hillsborough County that possibly could be coming through. Safety concerns, if you look at County Line Road, it's already a disaster for the residents trying to come off County Line Road and make a right turn. They're backed up like crazy. I mean, I know this area very well because I have kids that go to 2 of the schools there. So I'm on Mansfield quite often at various hours a day because of their sporting events and things like that. But public safety is obviously always the #1 concern. And if we want to push this traffic from Hillsborough County on Mansfield, it's gonna be a nightmare, and it will be a nightmare. And thankfully, finally, Bruce B. Downs is complete now. So now that Bruce B. Downs is completed, obviously it's much nicer for the people from Hillsborough County. I was going to read something because I know one of the things you talked about was people from Pasco County going to Hillsborough County to work and things like that. There's really not much going on in that area in Cross Creek. Actually, there was an article written actually one of the local newspapers about how majority of things are closing in that area, and because everything's coming to Wesley Chapel. So there's not a lot going on now. There is one person that did reach out to me that does work there. Lives in Pasco County and works along Cross Creek. But this is what she said. As you know, I work at St. Mark's, which is on Cross Creek Boulevard, and a connection would make my work commute very fast, but I would never want to compromise on safety or harm property and the walkability of the community due to selfishness. So the one person I know that actually works in Cross Creek doesn't want it open. I mean, seriously, that's one person I've talked to and one person I've had a conversation with that works there in that area and doesn't even want it open. So that's something to think about. Again, Meadow Point Boulevard, I get it. If we can widen Meadow Point Boulevard to 4 lanes, it can make sense. Mansfield and Kennan actually makes absolutely no sense for Pasco County residents. The only thing it's going to do is help the people that are in the development on the Hillsborough County side, just over that border, that they're going to continue to build, get off on our road and get on Bruce B. Downs. Really not our, there's things they could have done in the past in Hillsborough County, which opening up in Live Oak, which they got in a battle between Hillsborough County and the city of Tampa. They could have opened that up. They didn't do it. Now they want to put the burden on us. Shame on them. So.
In the interest of time, and just because we have a lot of speakers, we want to let them have it before I lose any of our board members to other commitments. We're going to go ahead and start with the public comments for this, if you don't mind. So you can take a front row seat. I'm probably so in case we need you. The first person that I have is Michael Kaufman. And even though I do call your name, if you could give us your name and address for the record, that would be wonderful. And we are limited to 3 minutes, and there are lots of you, so I'd ask you to respect that, please.
Is the mic live? Yes. Thank you. My name is Michael Kaufman. I live at 1822 Sassafras Drive in Wesley Chapel. My community, Longleaf, is bordered by County Line on the south and Mansfield Boulevard on the east. I am firmly against ever connecting Mansfield and Kennan, but I do recognize the need for connectivity in the area, so I am in favor of connecting Meadow Point Boulevard. A little history here that is not mentioned in the study. Mansfield Boulevard was originally built by the Meadow Point 2 developer. It was a 1.5 mile stretch of road from the county line up to Rencrest, or the end of the Longleaf community. Subsequently, it was turned over to the county by the Meadow Point 2 community, and it was extended up to State Road 56. At the time it was extended, Kennan Street ended 1 mile south of the county line down at Bassett Creek Road. I have not found, there has been a lot of discussion that there's agreements that these connections were planned and are supposed to be made. I have found no record anywhere of any formal agreement between Hillsborough and Pasco counties to connect Kennan and Mansfield. Mansfield was built as a collector road to provide access for the Meadow Point 2 communities to County Line Road and ultimately Bruce B. Downs. Then it was extended. It was not engineered, it was not designed to allow for high volumes of traffic. The first 1.5 miles of that road can never be widened. The study talks about doing things. None of what they're doing will allow to double the traffic volume on that stretch of road. The road is hemmed in by communities, by wetlands, by ponds. I'm paraphrasing a longer statement. I thought I'd have 2 chances to speak. The extension of Kennan, my understanding, was done by the K-Bar developer. They extended Kennan from Bassett up to the K-Bar Ranch Road and then extended it beyond up to the county line. Don't know why, other than this would give them the appearance of being able to offer good access to Pasco County. I feel for the residents of the K-Bar Ranch, but that's not our problem. Hillsborough County, if they're so concerned about safety, could offer improved connectivity through Live Oak. They refuse to do it, and in fact, they've now approved another 700 homes in that area. They're creating a problem. It's not up to us to solve it. Doubling the traffic on Mansfield will destroy the flavor of the community that I and my neighbors bought into. It's a nice, quiet, limited access community. Putting a through street in that will attract trucks, commercial traffic, will just change everything. As Commissioner Moore commented, and as the study pointed out, increase dangers to pedestrians, school children, create traffic nightmares, and ultimately lower our property values.
Sir, we'd ask you not to be disrespectful, but we would ask you to wrap
I understand.
it up.
May I give my full statement to your clerk for the record? Is that acceptable?
We have a motion, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank
Yes,
you.
sir.
Is there a time on that one?
So yes, we will accept your, I guess timer is not working. I know at the city we have a timer, so I
We
know
have one
where.
here, it's always working.
So what I would ask you to do, I'm gonna call out the names, and if you can, this is the order we'll take them. Robert Signoretti is next. Your name and address, and we are gonna try to keep to the 3 minutes. Right after that is Chris Dillinger. So Richard Trott? Trott. So you will be next, sir, so if you want to get behind him, we're ready, but go ahead, sir. Your name and address for the record.
My name is Robert Signoretti. I'm at 30716 Nickerson Loop, Westlake Chapel, Florida. I basically just wanted to ask the board members to make sure that as we consider these roads and facts, that we're asking our vendor to provide accurate information and then subsequently post that on the site, because news media and other folks are reading that when they're trying to interpret their decisions. Specifically, one of the positives you saw on that slide, those are opinions. There's not 1 ounce of data to support any of those opinions. For example, hang on here. So they say economic benefits. They don't list any. What are those economic benefits? However, they don't list any negative benefits. They don't show that. So all the datas and shops are convenient on the Hillsborough side. So all the things that they show on that are on the Hillsborough side. So that shouldn't be any convenience to us. Different routes. There's no data to show that anyone even wants to use these routes. As Mike had pointed out, there's nothing on there. If you want to go to work in Hillsborough, you're not going to travel through K-Bar Ranch Development and then go back onto Bruce B. Downs to go into those areas. It just simply doesn't make any sense, and it's not ease of traffic. In fact, with a simple map, you can look at some of these convenient places like supermarkets, parks, and if you go by Beardsley, they're actually closer to Publix or superior shops and stores in Pasco than they are in Hillsborough. I think my time is up already.
No,
oh,
you're
okay.
still going.
Oh, the beeper went off here, sorry. They also say that we need millions of dollars without the connections due to growth on 56, but state that opening Kinnan to the Hillsborough traffic really needs no other modifications. So I believe the survey contradicts itself. Why would you need modifications for growth in traffic north of 56 on Mansfield, but not from 3,000 cars diverted from Hillsborough or Bruce B. Downs onto Kinnan Mansfield? They also continue to support 50% of the residents are in favor, which is just not accurate. Even the handout that we have today shows that people are about 50-50 in favor of the Mansfield connection, which is totally and grossly inaccurate. I've sent several letters to the county to please ask them to correct it, because the news media has used it multiple times in newspapers and even on a Channel 8 study. So it really, these types of things, what I'm really asking for, and I can submit something to the clerk as well, is just that we're correcting those studies so that when people are reading it, they're reading accurate information. So in summary, what we're asking the board is, I think you'll hear universally, as even Mike pointed out, that most residents are in favor of Middle Point Boulevard, but we're not in favor to divert 3,000 cars a day from Hillsborough County past 3 schools and a college.
Thank you, sir. Your time is up. Did you have oh, you don't? Okay. Thank you, sir. The next person is Richard Trout. T-R-A-U-D-T, Trod. Sorry, sir. Your name and address for the record. And the next person up is going to be Chris Dillinger, if you want to get ready.
Richard Trout, 1802 Ray Van Ridge Street, Wesley Chapel, Florida. It's in the Longleaf subdivision of Meadow Point 2.
Good afternoon, sir.
Thank you for covering safety issues. I don't think people realize the safety issues that are there. It's insane. The only way possible to make that connection worthwhile to anybody would be to put in 2 northern lanes, 2 southern lanes, and there's no room for it. There are 11 ponds that are alongside Mansfield Boulevard, plus long walls to separate the subdivisions. There's no room for it. So I'm totally against that for safety purposes alone. And by the way, on the schools, you have kids are kids, preschool, Wiregrass Elementary, John B. Long Middle School, Wiregrass High School. Pasco Hernando State College has expansive rights by the amount of land that Porter family gave to them to multiply that facility 6 times over. So when that is finally done, you're going to have a heck of a lot more traffic beyond what we expect. Also, there's a huge development being built, and I have a tough time with the name, but it's Arind Inhar or something like that. It's on the southern end of, what is it? Thank you very much, yes. It's on the south end of Mansfield Boulevard, and it comes right to County Line Road, or just about to County Line Road. That's going to be a huge subdivision. There's a huge amount of multi-family buildings going up. I don't know if they're townhomes, condos, or what, plus single-family homes. So for the next 3 years, you're going to have a lot of construction vehicles coming in and out of there, and of course more and more people. So we're already going to have a problem with more people going on the road. So construction issues. Oh, by the way, you have the ridge extension that we made reference to that was added to that area. They haven't even built anywhere close to the exit that goes on in Mansfield. So you've got hundreds more homes coming in from them. You have Windermere further up, more homes coming in there. It's just insane how much you get going there. I think I've covered it pretty much. Just want to make a quick comment about Meadow Point Boulevard was designed, as somebody else mentioned, I think my gentleman to the right, that's designed for 2 lanes in each direction. And by the way, it's so easy for K-Bar Ranch Extension and K-Bar Ranch Boulevard, I think it is, to be built. That was planned, okay, to be built, and also to extend that up to Meadow Point Boulevard. And by the way, what Pasco has done, which is smart, Hillsborough County ought to do. Get the developers, I mean the builders of the areas, the developers, to participate in the costs of these.
Great. Thank you very much, sir. Chris Dillinger. And the next person after that will be Tracy Skinner. Your name and address for the record, please, sir.
Hi, Chris Dillinger, a resident of Iverson Drive, Meadow Point 2, Wesley Chapel. I live directly around the corner from the Beardsley-Mansfield intersection, which lies within my primary route in and out of my village. And I also have children attending 2 schools along Mansfield. As you know, there is grave concern from Pasco residents in the immediate vicinity of the Mansfield-Kinnan connector that opening up Mansfield to Kinnan will have a severe negative impact on our everyday quality of life, as well as our personal safety. It is easy for those who do not live in this immediate area to dismiss our fears as the unreasonable, whiny, and overreactive opinions of a small group of residents. This notion is especially convenient for those who would benefit most directly from accessing the shortcut through our neighborhood, such as the K-Bar and Cross Creek residents on the Hillsborough side. However, the Pasco residents have legitimate concerns, none of which are quelled by the current traffic study. If anything, the study does the opposite and actually exacerbates our concerns. My personal worst fear is that if all of the connections are approved, Mansfield-Kinnan would be allowed to open immediately simply because of the existing pressure and convenience of opening this connection, while it may be years before the Meadow Point Boulevard connector could be completed, and even longer for the Winfield extension. What assurances do we residents have that Mansfield-Kinnan would not be allowed to open in such a vacuum scenario? Additionally, in regard to the upcoming public opinion survey, I'm confident when results are analyzed, they will show that the large majority of Pasco residents in the immediate vicinity of the Mansfield-Kinnan connector are against it, and the further you move away in proximity, the more will be for it. If the results of the survey do indeed reveal such a finding, how will this ultimately impact your decision? I also want to state that my family attends St. Mark on Cross Creek, and in no way would the small convenience of being able to cut down Kinnan to reach this destination outweigh my concerns with opening the connector. I understand the idea of regional connectivity, however, not at our expense, and I will remain confident that you will hold our legitimate concerns in the highest regard as you make the best decision for the residents you represent. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Tracy Skinner. Next person up is going to be Bonnie Kushlakas. I'm sorry if I didn't, okay, thank you. Mrs. Tracy, your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Tracy Skinner at 30250 Glenham Court, Wesley Chapel, 33543. I'm a resident of Meadow Point 2. I live in the Glenham subdivision. It's directly off of Mansfield, and it has one way in and the same way out. Currently, there are times where I have to depend on the kindness of others to get in and out of my neighborhood, being so close to the schools. This would become a much more common occurrence with the influx of thousands of additional cars every day and make it extremely difficult to make a left turn onto Mansfield to get to County Line Road. Not to mention, Mansfield is already pretty rough with potholes and bumpy patches, and the increased traffic would only make this worse. But beyond my concerns of inconvenience and lowering property values is my concern for the children who walk and bike to the 3 schools on Mansfield, particularly the high schoolers. Unlike the middle school and elementary school kids, high schoolers do not have crossing guards and flashing school zone lights. They often travel to school while it is very dark outside. I cannot tell you how many times I have seen kids almost get hit by cars as it is. I cannot tell you how many times I have seen cars zoom by kids waiting to cross at crosswalks. I have 2 children that attend the high school, and I drive them to school every day due to the current hazards of crossing Mansfield in the morning. And this would no doubt only become more dangerous with increased traffic. I believe there is very little benefit to Meadow Point residents in connecting the roads, particularly for those who live off of Mansfield or have children who walk to school. I strongly believe that the convenience of Hillsborough County residents does not outweigh the quality of life and safety of Pasco County residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Bonnie Kushlakas, please, and the next person up will be Melissa DeLeon. Is Melissa here? Bonnie, your name and address for the record, please.
My name's Bonnie Kushlakas, K-U-S-H-L-A-K-U-S. I live in Meadow Point 2. I live in the Longleaf subdivision, and my address is 19434 Sassafras Drive, Wesley Chapel, Florida, 33543.
Good afternoon.
First and foremost, about this opening of Kennan and in Mansfield is that it's coming directly through our neighborhoods. It's going to bring thousands of new cars and lots of noise and unwanted vehicles down there. Mansfield does not have the capability of being extended without removing people's homes, sidewalks, retention ponds, and wetlands that people use every day, causing it to be very unsafe to pedestrians. School zone and general pedestrian safety. There are 3 school zones down Mansfield. There's 1 daycare, college, and elementary and middle school. There's also an elementary school on County Line Road. Traffic is already horrible in the mornings and afternoons in these areas, resulting in traffic jams, and people near these areas can hardly get in and out of their villages. And this is without the roads being connected. There are literally hundreds of children who are on the roads walking to and from school, and this will cause it to be very unsafe for them. There are many walkers, runners, and pedestrians in general on these roads, and the connector will make it very unsafe to them as well. The decrease in quality of life for residents, increased traffic when residents already complain about the ability to get in and out of villages, especially on Mansfield, but also on Beardsley and County Line Road. It's already next to impossible to get out of our villages, and opening the connection will result in being impossible to get out of our village, which will make it unsafe to people because they'll take risks to pull out. just to get out of their village. Meadow Point Boulevard is the appropriate connector as it was designed for expansion and does not have direct school zones. Convenient access to Hillsborough attractions does not outweigh the safety and quality of life concerns. Thank you.
Thank you.
I also have a document that I'd like to
Motion to receive and file.
receive.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
The next up is Melissa DeLeon, and after that will be Kelly Smith.
Madam Chairperson, I actually wanted to see if I could use my 3 minutes for Rob, for him to speak.
For who? I'm sorry?
Oh, may I use my 3 minutes to have Rob speak again or continue? Do I have your permission?
Yeah, but we will keep to the 3, just only because you can see there's another meeting going to be coming in, so we will just keep to the 3 minutes, and that's fine. Just give your name and address for the record again, sir.
Sure. My name is Robert Signoretti, 30716 Nickerson Loop, Wesley Chapel, Florida. I think it's also important to understand how we even got to this road connection, because there's a lot of folks that don't understand. There was really nobody in Pasco County looking to get to Hillsborough or any of these things that we're discussing. So it's important to know that K-Bar Ranch in Hillsborough County has not provided the appropriate infrastructure to its residents. They started by going through MI Homes and their developers to fix it, which they did not. The residents attempted to use the road going through Live Oak Preserve, but were told no because it is a private road. They then tried to go to Hillsborough for relief. Hillsborough did not listen to the residents and did not entertain fixing their infrastructure in K-Bar unless Pasco opened these connections. Now, Hillsborough County actually declined to accept opening Meadow Point Boulevard. That's very important. This is because it would require the developer of K-Bar or the county to complete the road to extend to Meadow Point Boulevard, and it has been incomplete for over a decade. They then started to put additional pressure on Pasco. In addition, they actually declined to spend a single dollar on the traffic study, full stop. They threatened to sue Pasco County to open Kinnan and use eminent domain rather than accept the Meadow Point Boulevard that was offered to them 3 years ago. Hillsborough County continues to claim there are emergency and grave safety concerns, so grave that they just approved 700 more homes in K-Bar Ranch. So that tells me either the concern is overstated for shock effect or they just willingly placed 700 more families in grave danger. Hillsborough County just raised $275,000 to open Kinnan Mansfield, but not a single penny was collected to correct the problem from within. So what I'm asking our board and our county is to please consider those when you're making the decision to open these connections, that Hillsborough has been largely unwilling to participate in any way, shape, or form to fix their problem. They're hoping basically to dump it over the fence to Pasco. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Kelly Smith. Renee Glassman.
Hello, Renee Glassman, 29534 Fog Hollow Drive, Wesley Chapel, Florida. I want to thank you, Mike Moore, for mentioning most of my points that I was going to present. But I also would like to talk about, we have problems with the schools now, and we'll want to make improvements to make that safer. But how safe will it be after we increase the traffic? Not only that, Pasco County is putting in a movie theater off of 56 and other commercial buildings like Raymond James. And those people who might buy properties in Hillsborough County will go through Mansfield to their homes, which would increase traffic, which you have not considered. And also, I believe there'll be extra traffic on County Line Road, because people will come up Cross Creek, go down County Line Road to go to Target or to other areas there. So you have to not only think of what is happening now, but what's going to happen in the short future with increased commercial traffic, commercial buildings and other things that are going to be on 56 that will cause more increased traffic in Pasco County. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all I have on this list. Is there anyone else? I know you've taken the time. Is there anyone else that wants to speak to this matter? All right, thank you. Commissioner Moore, just in closing, I know this is just an update, information only. Is there anything else you want to say before we move on?
Again, obviously you heard from a lot of residents. We didn't see any where people that are for connecting Kennet and Mansfield that spoke today. So I think obviously when it comes to a vote by this MPO to make that recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners, we need to take all the things that the residents said in consideration. Again, I appreciate staff, all the work they've done, and they've done a great job throughout this time. It's been a long process. You're almost towards the end. Again, a lot of them mentioned Meadow Point Boulevard. That could make a good connection because it's the ability to widen Meadow Point Boulevard. But you didn't hear one person say they're for the connection of Kennet Mansfield. And when it comes to the safety concerns, it's on the table, and it's always been on the table to put an emergency arm there where emergency vehicles can go through. That's not very difficult to do. That could be up very, very fast, and it's very inexpensive to do that. So that is an option. So if there's any concerns, there continue to be concerns about the safety aspect, we can put that up there. We've made that offer already once before, so it's still on the table. One of the things that I do see as a positive, though, that staff did put up there, if that arm is put in, you could have walking paths and bike paths and things like that, so you can traverse via foot or bike. So that is definitely a possibility. So when we talk about safety concerns, that's on the table. It's been fixed. I don't want to hear anybody from the other side say it's a safety issue when we've given those options. They're there now. That can be done tomorrow. So.
Thank you, Commissioner Moore, and thank all of you.
Commissioner.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Mariano.
Thank you. And, I went out to that meeting back in April at the college, and I heard nothing positive about Mansfield being opening, period. And I can see that hasn't wavered at all. I'm actually a little disturbed, kind of like I gave a look across when we look at the list of questions that we had as far as the alternatives, of that even being listed as the #1 alternative. Frankly, it's, to me, the least desirable from what I've seen, for all the reasons listed from before. And I think Mr. Signorelli actually brought up a couple of things in the second talk, so thanks for letting him go again. When he talked about, like, Meadow Point's the most sensible one. It was designed that way in Pasco County to go all the way through to do the connection. If Hillsborough's blocking that, we got a problem, and we need a strong discussion with that. I don't even see what concerns me about these questions. I don't see the connection or the alternative of connecting Meadow Point and Winfield. That's not a combination here. Is there any reason why, staff? But I'm looking here, it's not on one of the terms, so I'm just curious as to why.
Initially, when we look at what alternative we look at, by the way, when we say alternative #1, didn't mean that this is priority.
No, I understand.
But, so we look at, we had limited funds to look at analyze each alternative. But at the end of the day, we will put the combination of Meadow Point and Winfield in the survey. And right now we are looking at, and we actually did, looking at some preliminary analysis because we just extended our AECOM, we give them a little bit more money. We did look at the combination of that 2 openings, and the traffic volume are not that significant from what we already seen. So I don't think that it's gonna change any improvements that we identified. So those 2 will be on the survey so people can choose that.
All right, so I mean, Commissioner Royal, I'll defer a little bit, but I think those 2 that make the most sense. I know Morris Bridge is a narrow bit to go, but when I look at the K-Bar Road going all the way across over there, I know it's tough to expand that road, and kind of part of the reason we start so hard on getting State Road 56, right. Commissioners, Councilman Smith, to get that widened as much as we could, was very big. But I think, Hillsborough's got a really close look at expanding that road in there and getting their connection going. And as you say, there's nothing in there that's going to draw people down there. It's just going to get that northern traffic. And if they want to go to the north, they got a few good connections they can go build on. I think working further, but we clearly, did not design Mansfield to be a cutway. There's just no way. And when you look at the map, it makes sense. When you drive it, clearly it doesn't make sense. Yeah. So I think we should really take a look at how we're going to structure these questions going out there. I don't like the way they're set up right now, and I think that's a very strong approach that you need to study both of those, Meadow Point and Winfield, together. If there is resistance to down to Hillsborough, that may be another discussion to have with them, because those 2 that make the most sense to me.
Councilman Smith.
Oh, yes, I want to thank everybody for coming out, taking your time out of your day to come here. Great points were brought up. And I liked in particular the point that was made that what are the assurances that the other connections will be made? I think that's a valid point. The other thing that surprised me was the amount of traffic. You're only talking about 7,000 trips was what it was given, I think, as the amount that would be taken off of Bruce B. Downs, which I imagine that's a very small amount.
It's not our residents.
That's right.
Yeah.
So if it would have taken a lot of trips off of that road or saved a lot of money for Pasco, that's a little different story. But, you know, personally right now, and I wanted to hear all the information, I would lean towards not opening it at all, looking at the other options like has been mentioned now. And normally I'm all for connecting and connectivity, but in this case, the quality of life is going to be impacted significantly by these residents without a large gain. So that's my position on it.
Quick, and not
No,
that I want
this
to
be
make
real
quickly,
quick.
but real quick.
And again, we had a meeting today at Kona this morning to breakfast. We left all at the same time. I think I went a different way than most of the others. And that way, well, and partly because I just wanted to like drive along the 54 corridor from all the way across, and it took me, I guess, 20 minutes longer than the rest of everybody, depending what time they got here. But anyway, when I look at the December meeting coming up, I just want to make this reference. I think we're smart to go change that May meeting so it's in Dade City. I don't know if this was done earlier, so pardon me for not knowing. But that December meeting that we have next year should be over in Newport Richey as well. And we'll take care of this situation when it comes up for the public hearing. And the other one over there, we don't have to worry about running back and forth as well. I don't know if that was made already.
Yeah, I think that was the decision that was made already.
17th of January.
You guys are unbelievable.
Isn't it amazing? Oh, that's right, you were here. I'm just kidding.
All right, and
You're stuck in traffic.
I am not trying to be disrespectful. I know people took time here, but there is another meeting you can see that is coming in whether we are here or not. So, again, I want to thank all of you for coming today with your input. And I know Commissioner Moore and Commissioner Mariano have been there, but I think I've learned a lot as well about just seeing the faces and hearing the stories really does have made a significant impact. Quickly, we are going to just note the other businesses. John, do you want to just quickly just tell us that so we can open it up for public comment? Do you want to? The other business, safe streets in the weekend? Okay. Okay. Excuse me, for those of you that hear, there is one more public comment. Is there anybody here that would like to address this board on any other item besides Wesley Chapel? Seeing none, we adjourn. Our next meeting is in January 17th. Thank you all for coming. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year, everybody.
Thank you all.